Hello, I'm Jess Bozzo of Performative, an Argyle company, the leading online resource for the Office of the CFO. I would like to welcome everyone to today's event entitled A Modern Finance Case Study, Cloud or On-Premise. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Prophix. Prophix develops innovative software that automates critical financial processes such as budgeting, planning, consolidation, and reporting, improving a company's profitability and minimizing their risk. Their commitment to thought leadership in this realm helps us make today's webinar possible and delivered at no cost to the participants. Before we get started, I'll cover a few features of the console. On the left-hand side, you'll be able to view slides and polling questions during the webcast. You'll also be able to download a PDF of today's slides by clicking on the link in the resource list icon area. We invite you to ask questions at any time during today's webcast in the Q&A area of your console. In terms of the learning objectives for today's webinar, after attending, you will be able to understand more about the cost, service, functionality, technology consideration, and business benefits when looking at on-premise systems and cloud-based offerings. Comprehend the various evaluation criteria and how they are related to each deployment option, and appreciate how the resulting deployments provide a reduced reliance on spreadsheets. Shorten period end reporting cycles and accelerated reporting, enabling finance to spend more time on value-added analysis. Before I introduce today's featured speakers, we have a few housekeeping items to cover. The slides are available under handouts. We will send you links via email to the presentation and the recording within 24 hours. For those seeking credit today, you must answer all polling questions and remain on the line for the duration of the webinar. Credits are awarded in 24 hours. If you have any questions on credits, please email cpe@performative.com. As a reminder, please submit any and all questions that come up during today's webinar into the Q&A section of the interface. And finally, please take the short survey at the end of the webinar. Now, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome today's featured speakers. First up, Craig Schiff, CEO at BPM Partners. BPM Partners is a vendor-neutral advisory services firm that helps clients address their performance management challenges with a comprehensive, rapid, and cost-effective methodology. He was a founding member of Hyperion, which is now part of Oracle, and spent 16 years as SVP of its products and services group. Next up, we have Joey Perroni, Director FP&A at Aglia Biotherapeutics. Joey was hired by Aglia Biotherapeutics in April of 2015 and assumed the responsibilities of financial planning and analysis, treasury, and cash management. Additionally, he is actively engaged in the company's strategic planning processes and initiatives. Last but not least, we have Ronell Marbella, Director of Product Strategy with Prophix. Ronell has over a decade of experience in business modeling and planning with a deep knowledge of corporate performance management for a range of industries across the globe. He's an experienced business strategist and designer with proven success in developing and launching new growth business opportunities and in helping to solve companies' most important business challenges. Now, I'd like to welcome Craig. Welcome, Craig. Over to you.
Very good. Thanks, Jess. So let's jump right into today's topic, cloud or on-premise. And let's start with some definitions. So for the purposes of today's webcast, we're going to use the generic cloud definition, which is all-encompassing, so it could include a standalone cloud solution as the standard approach of a particular vendor, and those are usually multi-tenant, meaning that multiple users share the code on a server but have their own segregated data sets. It's also going to cover the terms related to an on-premises product that's hosted for the customer by the vendor through a third party. These can be multi-tenant, so they can be hosting for multiple customers, or single tenant, so they could install their product on a server for a single customer. So we're going to use cloud to cover all of that. And then on-premise, fairly obviously, is when you host the product yourself on your own internal server behind your firewall. So when we compare those two at a high level, on-premise and cloud, let's look at some of the main elements you would examine. So the full suite, the full functionality of performance management, budgeting, planning, forecasting, reporting, consolidation, dashboards. There are on-premise solutions that have all those capabilities and cloud solutions as well. In terms of number of users and size of the database, both cloud and on-premise, within reason, offer essentially unlimited number of users and unlimited database size in terms of number of accounts, number of reports, number of organizational entities, and so on. The limit really there is more about available resources, disk space, memory, and so on. The vendor ability to deliver a customized solution to meet your unique requirements. While all products are configurable, so in that regard, most products, be it on-premise or cloud, can meet your needs. In some cases, certain capabilities that certain customers need may require an upcoming version of a vendor's product, and that's easier to accommodate in an on-premise environment than it is in the cloud environment where everyone is running the same current version of the software. So a slight difference there. Both on-premise and cloud-based vendors have product roadmaps that are very well spelled out. Even though their upgrade timeframes may be different, their roadmaps are fairly explicit in both cases. So not a lot of difference between cloud and on-premise at a high level. Now let's take a look at availability and performance. So the performance being maintained as you continue to grow number of users or size of the database. So on-premise, you can grow within reason and not see any performance impact. However, if you increase dramatically and get into much larger numbers, the cloud environment, they're able to more dynamically allocate additional resources as needed. That's much more difficult to do in an on-premise setup and really more of a manual process. You have to bring more servers online, add more memory, and so on and so forth. Is there a service level agreement for uptime? With on-premise, no. For cloud-based, there is. Again, on-premise, you're running that yourself, so it's your own IT group that would have that responsibility. Similarly, vendor monitoring performance and availability of the product. Again, the on-premise performance management vendors don't need to do that. Your IT group will do that with your internal systems. The cloud vendors, though, do provide that capabilities. Redundant data centers, cloud vendors provide redundancy. Your IT group may or may not do that. And regular backups at frequent intervals. Cloud vendors do that as a matter of course. And again, your IT group may or may not do that. But the on-premise vendor doesn't have that responsibility. That's your responsibility. So that's the primary difference here. In terms of upgrades, on-premise, a notorious issue is that you're not always on the latest software version. So an on-premise vendor has to deal with multiple iterations and versions of their software needing to support all of them simultaneously. A cloud vendor requires you to be on the latest version, and you are, because of the nature of the technology, signing in and always running the latest version of their software. The pace of innovation is measured by the frequency of upgrades. On-premise vendors, because of the challenges of maintaining multiple versions, generally issue upgrades on a 6 to 12-month basis. In some cases, for some vendors, others I've seen take 18 or 24 months. So the pace of upgrades is much slower because it's quite burdensome for the vendor to maintain multiple versions, but also burdensome for your IT department to implement those updates. In terms of clouds, it's virtually automatic, and you're always signing into the latest version. So most cloud vendors update their products on a quarterly basis, 3 or 4 times a year typically. Vendor responsibility for the upgrades. On-premise, again, it's up to you and your IT group when you're going to apply the upgrades. And in the case of cloud, the vendor automatically puts the upgrade in place, although some cloud vendors will offer the option to test the upgrade in a sandbox or non-production environment, so you don't run it before you've had a chance to try it with your specific system. So this is a major point of departure between cloud and on-premise. Most full-blown cloud solutions have more frequent upgrades, and they're automatic. The on-premise, it's less frequent and a manual process for your team. Now, what about security? Big concern for everyone. So in terms of an on-premise product, immediate security patches issued by the vendor. If it is something serious, they will do that. Cloud certainly will do that and apply it for you. Third-party audits of the security of the system. You can have that done with an on-premise solution, but in cloud, that's pretty standard. Penetration testing, susceptibility and vulnerability to hacking of the system, unauthorized access. Again, cloud does that as cloud vendors do that as part of their normal operations. You can have that arranged for on-premise solutions. Is this product designed with security as an overriding priority? Cloud solutions, because of the nature of how they're being deployed, absolutely. On-premise, not necessarily so. And then the last point here, inside the firewall, on-premise is, cloud is not, and that really explains the rest of the list. So when it's inside the firewall, all of these security precautions are taken by you and your IT group. When it's outside the firewall on a cloud, hosted by a cloud provider, then they're responsible for all of these security considerations. So the security is really there in both cases. Again, it's a function of who's doing that security. And it's either the cloud vendor providing that or your IT group providing it for the on-premise solution. So now we've looked at some high-level differences between cloud and on-premise. And in terms of the offerings that are in the market today, every major vendor has a cloud offering. Some vendors, that's all they have. So they're focused on cloud-based solutions and they don't have a corresponding on-premise version. Other vendors have both an on-premise solution as well as a cloud solution. And it may actually be, in this case, two different products. They may have a suite of products that they built to run on-premise and a completely different suite that runs in the cloud. Other vendors have a single product that can be deployed on-premise or hosted. In that case, it's the exact same product. So before we continue, let's take a poll at this point.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Craig. Our first polling question is, are you currently looking to replace your budgeting, reporting, forecasting, or planning system? The options are yes in the next 1 to 2 months, yes in the next 3 to 6 months, yes in the next 6 to 12 months, yes in a year or more, yes but unsure of timing, or no, just researching, budgeting, reporting, forecasting, or planning solutions. Please take a few moments to select your answer, and as a reminder for those attendees seeking credit for today's webcast, you will need to answer all 3 polling questions. I will leave this question up for a few more seconds to allow the remainder of the attendees to answer, and once I shut this question down, we'll share the results and I'll read out the most popular answer. So please go ahead and make your selection. And now I will go ahead and share the results. And you can see that most people are just researching budgeting, reporting, forecasting, or planning solutions. Craig, I'll now turn things back over to you to continue on in your presentation.
Very good. And now for those of you in the audience out here researching, we will share our research results. We conduct an annual survey called the BPM Pulse. The 2016 edition had about 300 responses. The bulk of the responses, although it's a global survey, were from North America. It was across all industries, but the largest response groups were in manufacturing, healthcare, financial services, not-for-profit, service, retail, and higher ed. Company size was mostly about half of them were in the mid-market, followed by large and enterprise-sized companies, and then the smallest grouping was the smaller companies. But it was across all of those areas. And the respondents were from all operational areas, but the bulk really were in finance. So when you look at these results, it's really the voice of North America for mid-market and larger companies from the finance department. So we're talking about cloud or on-premise here. One of the questions we ask in our survey every year is, would your organization consider a cloud-based solution for performance management? And this is the 2016 results here. And 65% said some form of yes. You could see there's a slice there that we expect will grow over time that says I'm only going to look at cloud solutions. The 35% said yes, I'll consider cloud solutions along with on-premise. And 24% of the survey respondents already purchased a solution in the cloud. And then there's a smaller grouping here that says possibly in the future, and a very small group that say no. So that's been shrinking over time, the 7% that will not consider cloud-based. So clearly, cloud is becoming something that's of growing interest to a number of companies. So of those people that said yes, they'll consider cloud, we wanted to see how that relates to other initiatives in their organization. And we asked the question, is moving to the cloud a priority for your company or organization? And you can see here about 80% said yes, it is. So moving to the cloud for performance management is in line with broader corporate initiatives to move their enterprise applications to the cloud. So for those people considering cloud solutions, these are some cloud benefits. We listed 8 of them here and asked them to rank them. rate them in order of importance, with 1 being the most important. You could see by the color coding how many 1s and 2s and 3s each answer got, but this graph ranks them when you pull all that together. And you can see at the top of the list, what are people interested in from the cloud? Minimizing IT resource use, as well as IT infrastructure and hardware. So really at the top of the list is reducing the demand on IT staff and reducing the need for IT hardware, lower initial costs, the ease of upgrades, and then so on and so forth down the list. But you can clearly see, what's the top of the list. At the bottom of the list is cloud integration. That is, I want a cloud solution because it will more easily integrate with other cloud products that I'm using today. So that still may be important, but in the ranking of these 8 items, it fell to the bottom of the list. So it's really reduced IT resource and hardware. This question was asked only of those who actually said in that first slide that they have purchased a cloud performance management solution. So what benefits have they received from the system? So this is asking the actual users. Easy product updates is an answer that the majority of people said, and this is the top of the list of all the responses we got. Easy to use, I can access it from anywhere, the implementation was quick, and lower costs. Now, cost is kind of a controversial area when it comes to these systems, and we'll take a look at costs in more depth in a few minutes. But this is the top of the list of benefits that cloud users believe they get from their cloud-based performance management approach. Now, this question was asked of those people who said they're not ready for cloud now or they don't think they'll ever be. What are the main reasons you wouldn't consider a cloud-based solution? And the top of the list is security, as we would expect. As we saw from the security slide, security concerns are more perception than reality, but it doesn't really matter. Perception can drive decision-making here. And company policy and culture, which is very closely related to the security concerns. There are some concerns about integrating with existing on-premise systems, concerns about response time and performance, uptime, and the fact that it's treated as an operating expense the way cloud-based systems are typically priced versus a capital expense. So for some companies, that's a negative. So we asked the same group, would you consider moving performance management to the cloud in various amounts of time? And you could see here about a quarter of them said maybe in 2 years, but there's still about 2/3 that say, I really can't tell you when it's going to happen. It's not in the near term. It's not in the foreseeable future. So what this shows is, while many people are moving to the cloud, there's still a large group that don't plan to do that anytime soon. So who are these people, these cloud laggards? Well, in certain industries where security is very key to their entire business operation, government agencies, financial services, healthcare, as you would expect, they're very concerned about security as it relates to these systems as well. So they're a little more hesitant, a little more risk-averse, and we'll give it time and watch it evolve, and we'll join in later. Also, larger organizations where they have a lot of IT staff, a lot of resources, a lot of hardware, a lot of existing on-premise solutions, and they want to control it themselves, and they have the staff to do that, they're also a little more hesitant to make the move to the cloud right now. So now let's look at cost considerations. So when you look at an on-premise solution, you look at a license fee plus an annual maintenance fee. So you purchase the license fee up front, and then on an ongoing basis, you pay an annual maintenance fee. For cloud-based solutions, you're paying a usage fee, a subscription fee on an annual basis. In the case of cloud solutions, there's reduced, as we've discussed, IT, hardware, and personnel costs. There's a question of how many years you look at when you want to compare the cost of subscription versus license fee versus with maintenance, and we'll take a look at that in a second. Now, there's a perceived cash flow benefit to cloud-based solutions, but it tends not to be reality. The assumption is you're going to be paying every year, pay as you go, which is essentially true in the way it's priced. But the way it's billed is most cloud vendors either require or strongly incentivize you to pay for the initial contract up front, which is usually 3 or 4 years. So in fact, those cash flow benefits of spreading the payment out over time is not quite the way it works out in the end. And then companies do consider whether they'd prefer to have an operating expense through a subscription or a capital expense versus via an outright license fee purchase. So coming back to the survey, when comparing the subscription fees of a cloud solution to the one-time license fee and maintenance fees of an on-premise solution, how many years out would you look? And the vast majority we see in our own performance management practice in the field is consistent with this graph. Typically 3 years is the outlook that people take, sometimes 5 years, and then others are all over the map. 1 year, 10 year, it varies dramatically. But 3 years is typically the look that people give. Now, that's why we put up this example of cumulative costs over time. So assume a 50-user system. Assume an on-premise version is $125,000 as a one-time license fee with a 20% annual license and renewal fee, which is around $25,000, versus cloud, which is $50,000 annual subscription. Now, we pick these numbers to make a point. The actual prices of various solutions will vary pretty widely, and that on-premise number is probably a little bit high. The cloud solution, a rule of thumb, $1,000 per user per year, is not that far off the mark. But we wanted to make the point here. So if you take a look, if you did a 3-year analysis, you would see that the on-premise is more expensive. If you did a 5-year analysis, you would say it's equal. But it's after that point, again using the numbers here, that after that point in year 6 and so on, it shifts pretty dramatically, and over time you'll be spending a lot more on the cloud-based solution because that $50,000 keeps repeating on that side while it's $25,000 on the on-premise. And regardless of what the actual numbers are with the actual systems you purchase, this model basically is accurate. Somewhere around year 4 or 5, it will cut over where the cumulative cost of cloud is more than on-premise. And again, that's just talking about these fees. It's not considering implementation nor any additional hardware or IT resources that on-premise would require. Now, most people keep systems 8 to 10 years or longer, so these 3 to 5 year analysis that people are doing, leave some of that key information out. So just sharing this to give you a sense of how this really plays out over time for the life of the product. We also asked the question, if you're going to purchase a cloud-based solution, where would you like to get it from? And do you want a vendor who offers multiple deployment options, cloud and on-premise? That's about 21% said that. A vendor who only offers cloud, 32%. But the largest grouping, 47%, said really it doesn't matter, whoever has the best product for my needs. So they're focusing on their requirements, their business needs, and whichever vendor meets those requirements, that's where they'll get the solution from, as long as cloud is an option, because this question was about cloud-based solutions. So to summarize this, the bottom line is people choose cloud if it's a company priority to move to the cloud. They have limited IT resources, which is, we see in the field, pretty typical in mid-market companies, where if they don't get a cloud solution, they're not going to be able to get performance management anytime soon because their IT department is backed up with other projects. So that's a pretty major reason people choose cloud. Easy access from anywhere, a global company, want anyone to be able to sign on fairly easily, much easier to do with a cloud-based solution. And if they prefer a product that's constantly being updated, people are used to the way smartphones operate, where there's a new feature or bug fix and it's immediately available. If they think in those terms, then the frequent and automatic updates is also a major selling point of cloud. People that choose on-premise, in certain industries, or if their company is not ready for the cloud, they'll go with on-premise today. If they have idle resources, IT that's available or hardware that's available, they may want to use that and take advantage of it. If they want more control of the update process and they don't want to see updates as frequently as the cloud vendors are doing, and if they want to minimize the recurring costs, they want to pay a license fee up front and pay a lower maintenance fee on an ongoing basis, that's another reason they might choose on-premise. So in summary here, the deployment choice is ideal, being able to let you focus on business requirements and then install it the way you want, on-premise or in the cloud. And you can start with on-premise. I mean, ultimately, we're all going to move to the cloud. So even those companies that want an on-premise solution today, it's nice to go with a vendor that has a cloud option for you to move to down the road when you're ready, and hopefully in a fairly streamlined fashion so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but could leverage all the work you've done on your current system. As a matter of fact, that is the most common vendor offering. So you hear a lot about cloud-based vendors. What's most common are vendors that offer both cloud-based and on-premise. So regardless of the deployment methodology, performance management itself is valuable, and that's why we're here today, and that's why we're having this discussion. So let's just briefly look at the survey in terms of the benefits people actually received from their performance management systems and why they moved forward. So what makes people look at performance management systems in the first place? They're trying to improve management reporting and improve decision making, the two top reasons. Within the planning realm, they want a better planning system. They're trying to get away from problems with Excel. In some cases, they're trying to improve external reporting, and they want better operational analytics. But really, it's all about internal management reporting, which is the biggest focus typically. So what benefits have people actually received from performance management? Well, this question was, if you've implemented performance management for budgeting, how has it impacted the length of time the budgeting process takes? And as you can see here, the vast majority of people, almost 90%, say that's reduced the time either somewhat or significantly. So clearly, it makes the process more efficient for budgeting. On the consolidation and reporting side, we asked the same question, and here you have slightly less, but still almost 80% of the people said it reduced the time somewhat or significantly. So again, makes these processes much more efficient. But beyond efficiency, the other benefits, and this question was asked of people who've now implemented performance management, what are the main benefits you've received? Better reports and analysis, easier access to information, more accurate planning, shorter cycles, more useful budget, and also, very importantly, a side benefit is error reduction. It's obviously very important, not typically the reason people pursue these systems, but these systems tend to capture errors that have been there all along and you weren't aware of. So lots of good reasons to move forward, and with both deployment options being available today, cloud or on-premise, there's really no reason to wait. Whatever you prefer, you can move with that particular deployment approach today. And with that, I believe we have another polling question.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Craig. We'll now launch our second polling question. The second question is, what is your biggest concern when implementing a new solution? The options are, will the software fit with the existing infrastructure? What is the effort for maintenance, installation, backup, and upgrades? What is the assurance of data security? What is the underlying technology, or all of the above? Please take a few moments to select your answer. As a reminder for those attendees seeking credit for today's webcast, you will need to answer all three polling questions. This is the second one. I'll leave this poll up for a few more seconds to allow the remainder of the attendees to answer. And like last time, once I shut this question down, we'll share the most popular result. So please go ahead and make your final selection. And the most popular answer is all of the above, with about 68%. Now I'd like to turn things over to Joey. So welcome, Joey, over to you.
Thank you. So my name is Joey Peroni. I work with the Glia Biotherapeutics, and we are a biotechnology company committed to developing enzyme-based therapeutics in the field of amino acid metabolism to treat rare genetic diseases and cancer. We were founded December 2013. Our head office location is in Austin, Texas. At the end of 2016, we had about 30 employees, and we implemented an ERP system, NetSuite, in late 2015. Went through a couple of private rounds of Series A and Series B financing, and here early in 2016, we had our initial public offering. My responsibilities at Glia range from financial planning and analysis, so budgets, forecast, treasury, cash management, investor relations, and management reporting. I first came onto Glia in early 2015 and took over the budgeting and forecasting roles. And at that point, we had between 10 and 15 employees and did all of our budgeting and forecasting strictly in Excel. We're a pre-revenue company that relies, extensively on external funding. And we kept entering a situation that when a financing event did occur, we would have to change our strategic and operational plans due to the additional resources that we got, and also change our budgets and forecasts. And what this what we need to be able to do is to quickly update forecasts and align with our new strategic and operational goals. We're also starting to enter a phase of our company where we're entering clinical trials, and clinical trials are inherently complex in themselves. You deal with patient accrual, so you're trying to go out and actually find patients to test your drugs on. You're dealing with a government agency of the FDA that could put a trial on hold, or you could have protocol updates that could also cause delays in your trials, or could speed up your trials. It can go either way. So there was constantly a need to be able to update and get understanding of what was going on with our clinical trials. And then also, even though we had an ERP system that could do basic reporting, we had no real way to look at project reporting, and we were starting to become more focused on project teams and needed to give project teams an understanding of where we were allocating dollars. So we needed to have a system that could also give us some good project reporting. So when all this started to come, clear that we either needed to look at hiring additional heads, or we needed to look at doing potential solutions, we started mapping out, what features would we want in a solution. And one was the ability to aggregate department project budgets, forecast dynamically. When someone updated a template and sent it over to finance and accounting, we didn't want to have to wait around till everybody submitted something. We wanted to quickly be able to aggregate things and not go through a long Excel exercise. We also wanted to be able to do ad hoc financial analysis. So we wanted to be able to dig down deep, take a project, divide it by, look at it on a quarterly basis, look at it on an account basis, have the ability to splice and dice data rather quickly depending on the questions that we were getting. Management reporting, we had the basic reporting out of our ERP system. However, management did not always like the reports and how they were generated. So a lot of times we were generating a report and then actually going into Excel and making it more aesthetically pleasing. So that was also another time-consuming task. And then as we continued to grow as a company, we started to encounter issues where certain departments might house multiple functions earlier on in our life stage, but as we were growing, we started to get more people and they ran different departments. So when we were looking at year-over-year analysis or quarter-over-quarter analysis, it was the variances that we were getting from a department level weren't always telling the accurate story. We needed to be able to have a system that we could take our general ledger data out of and move it around to be able to do good year-over-year analysis and kind of have a value add there. And weighing whether to go to the cloud or on-premise implementation, we're strictly a cloud-based company. We do not have any hardware or servers here. We have no internal IT staff. So there's the need to have something that really cloud was the only option that we could really look at for a planning software. Then we also needed to be able to access it anywhere with internet service. If we had somebody out visiting a trial and they got information that was going to cause have an effect on our numbers, we would like them to quickly get in and update a forecast so we can always know what's going on. And then finally, anytime you're dealing with change management, you're trying to explain to people why we're moving away from a process that everybody was used to, something that's user-friendly and easy for them to update was important to us. So we made the decision to go with Prophix after looking at several other systems, and this is actually, I guess, my second Prophix implementation. I don't know, you can maybe even say it was my third. My previous company that was dramatically bigger in size to Glia, my first role was to actually implement Prophix there. We were acquired by another company that also used Prophix as their planning tool, and prior to leaving there, I actually combined the two instances. So came here, evaluated different types of software. We chose Prophix. The entire implementation was done at the end of 2016. Took about 40 hours. A consultant, a design architect with Prophix came down, and we started just talking about needs and what we wanted the system to accomplish. And one of the focuses that we really tried to focus on was in designing the system and setting it up, we didn't want to just design it to solve today's problems, but we wanted to build it to grow with the company and to solve tomorrow's problems. So, the implementation's been going extremely smooth. We have actually rolled Prophix out to our accounting team, who is using the ad hoc analysis function and basic reporting functions right now. They're able to run reports, and they're starting to actually design their own reports. Workflow is going to be rolled out to the entire company here early in 2017, kind of taking a phased approach with it, where one of the departments that updates forecasts on a monthly basis due to the variability within the department is going to be rolled out first, and we're going to use them as a trial, and then we'll roll it out to the whole company when we do our 12-month rolling forecast updates. And yeah, there's no huge challenges, and looking forward to using the system the rest of this year. What were we able to accomplish really? It says first 90 days, but it was almost even sooner than that. We were implementing the budget while we were doing the 2017 budget, so we kind of did them in tandem. It was one way to check the system to make sure it was working like we had wanted it to, and so very quickly, we had the 2017 budget in the system with line item details. We're able to do basic reporting and operational reports very quickly. Was able to create these and provide them to management. Personnel planning was something that we also was able to get up and going in the first week and load all employees and load hiring plans, and we actually used it to not only support in the system, but also our external Excel budget. Cash forecasting, something that we're, as a pre-revenue company that we're constantly looking at, and we're able to create statistical accounts that, calculate an EBITDA number and then help us understand any updates to our budget to forecast what kind of effect it's going to have on our cash balances. Accounting's been able to use the flux analysis tool, the ad hoc reporting, and we're also able to design some project reports to give our project team the reports that they've so badly wanted. How does the numbers from our general ledger or ERP system NetSuite get into Prophix? Right now it's manual. We set up a process in Prophix that originally took about 10 to 15 minutes to actually just set up. But after that's been set up, I generally run a report out of NetSuite and enable to, within 2.5 minutes, to quickly load the numbers and get refreshed numbers into Prophix. So it's really a pretty easy process, doesn't take too much time, and we're actually in the works right now of automating this so that here within the hopefully by the end of the first quarter, this manual process will actually go away, and I'll be able to load actuals into our system a lot smoother. So our original budgeting process was very reliant on Excel. Typically what we do is we send out templates, Excel-based templates to all department heads. They would update that, they send it back to finance and accounting, and we'd start aggregating the departments. When there's a couple of departments, it wasn't that big of a deal, but as we grew in size, you're sometimes implementing or sometimes aggregating and consolidating up to 25, 30 tabs. All of a sudden, you're also dealing with doubling of workforce, so making sure that you get salary and fringe correct and calculate all the benefits for personnel was becoming just an exercise in Excel that was error-prone. Project reporting, all of a sudden you're having to create templates that not only could figure out the total expenses for a department, but they would also have to put in these at a project level so we could get project reporting. We'd go through this entire process, and then we might roll everything up and then figure out, what our milestones, what we need to achieve. We're not going to have the amount of cash that we want to at that point, so we'd have to tell everybody to reduce their budget, to reduce their forecast by 20%, and we'd start this whole process all over. So this process would take 2 to 3 weeks, usually a month, and we would do this on a quarterly basis. So it was just becoming a huge Excel exercise and just taking a lot of time, and we're more in the weeds than actually adding value to the company. So what have we gained since we have implemented Prophix? Consolidating departments and project budgets. We've been able to create kind of sub-departments and then roll it up using the hierarchies that are within the system to give not only individuals budgets, but also show their supervisor what the different departments are doing. We've been able to adjust our historical financials. As I said earlier, different job functions have moved around, and we need to have the ability to be able to look at it year over year. And we've been able to take our general ledger data, put it in an alternate version within the system, and adjust the historical financials to give us accurate year-over-year analysis. The personnel planning, it's been dramatically cut time in the fact that we're easy to run reports, easy to add people. We now send reports out on a monthly basis, asking people to update the start date, and can make sure that, to what extent we can, our fixed costs are tightly managed. From a reporting standpoint, our accounting team is now able to run flux analysis reports and trial expense reports very quickly. Our project teams now are able to get project reporting, and in our biweekly project meetings, previously we might spend a day or a half a day actually aggregating reports for everybody, and now it's literally as easy as clicking a button, updating a dashboard based off that report, and then just presenting it to the different project teams. So we've had significant improved analysis ability, clinical trial cost, just the ability that any string in your accounting string, we can now dig in deeper using the ad hoc analysis tool within the system. Clinical trial costs, we're now able to run reports and give it to our team. Really the area that has the most variability, now we're able to dig down pretty deep and get an understanding of what's going on. Project reporting, it's like the other day our CFO walked in and he asked a question, and I think he's just used to not getting an answer as quickly, and asked the questions, proceeded to leave the office, and I quickly told him, stop, I can give you this answer right now, and him just laughing at how quickly we were to be able to dig in and get the information and not search through 35 tab Excel worksheets to get an answer. He feels better about the information we're giving him, and it's a lot quicker. Really, and then buy-ups is another area that I think having the system has been huge for us. So, we'll do our budget, and some things might get cut. And as the year goes on, we keep these things as buy-ups that we can add later in the process if we are saving money in other areas. The system allows us to create different what-if scenarios. So as we're going on through the year, I can quickly add in a buy-up to figure out what the effect would be on our numbers and be able to give senior management an understanding of, if we did proceed with this project, what it's going to do to our numbers. And really keys to success, I would always stress, explain to senior management why we need this. For me, it was, I went in to the CFO and CEO and explained to them that either we would need another head or we can purchase a system and buy time in delaying that extra added person. And they understood that, and then a lot of times, too, it's you're going through this implementation, it's something new, and you're working with a consultant. It's very easy to have your consultant then train the rest of your team, and I would always say, let you train your team, get the expertise, keep it in-house so you aren't relying on external consultants. And then it's continuous improvement. Follow up with the end users. Check to make sure that the templates they're using are beneficial. If there's ways that you can actually improve them, work with them. Prophix, if you're familiar with Excel, it's an easy transition because it's very similar to Excel in some of their reporting functionality. So to be able to make changes to it was very easy, and design the templates more easy format for our end users to use. And that's it for me, and I'm going to hand it off to Renell.
Great. Thanks, Joey. Okay, so I'm Renel Marbella. I'm the Director of Product Strategy at Prophix. I'm really responsible for product strategy and the ongoing evolution of our performance management solutions and the roadmap, really to align with the needs of our customers, our prospects, and the market in general. So just a little bit about Prophix. We've been in the performance management industry space for over 20 years, almost 30 years now. We have over 3,000 customers in over 100 countries. And we are laser focused. So as I mentioned, we've been in the space, the corporate performance management space, for a long time. We are focused on the space. It's what we do, and it's what we continue to do and focusing in going forward. We've been recognized by a number of analysts as being leaders in the space. And really our goal is to focus on empowering organizations to bring together all of the different data sources they have within their organization into a single platform to enable better decision-making and more rapid decision-making for them. We're headquartered in Toronto, Canada, and we've got locations all across the globe. Okay, so I think what I wanted to cover really was, again, diving a little bit deeper into the cloud versus on-premise decision, really focusing in on, helping prospects and potential customers of a performance management solution to choose between cloud and on-prem by sharing some of the experience that we've gained over our years in the space and in talking to our customers, the market, etc. We've just heard two different perspectives on the cloud versus on-prem decision from Craig, really sharing the industry view on some of the key factors and the factors to consider as part of that decision process. And from Joey, one of our customers, who actually shared their specific reasons for choosing cloud when they were looking for a CPM solution. From a Prophix perspective, we fully believe that functionality should really be the number one criteria in selecting a performance management solution. Ultimately, it's about choosing the right implementable solution with the right functionality to meet your organization's business needs. And it's also about the expertise that a vendor brings to the table, really to help you to deploy that functionality effectively. So really, once a company has evaluated the solution based on functionality and the vendor's ability to deploy that functionality or help them deploy that functionality, the choice really comes down to the organization's unique situation with respect to some other considerations. Now, we've heard some of the considerations outlined by Craig, things with regards to the IT strategy, the nature of the user base, and several other factors. As I mentioned, what I'd like to do is really share some of our thoughts around some of these additional considerations beyond functionality and delivery, and how this really influences the choice between cloud and on-premise based on what we've heard from our customers. Okay. So what are some of these additional organizational considerations? So this is not a comprehensive list, but again, based on our conversations with prospects and customers, here are some that come to mind. We talked about IT strategy. So really, does the company have a cloud-first or a cloud-only strategy? Or are they committed to staying on-premise or being on-premise? Do they have a plan to transition to or move to the cloud at some point? I think this is one of the considerations that's really going to drive the decision on-prem versus cloud. Another one might be the ease of implementation or use. Historically, there's been a perception in the market that cloud equals ease of use, but that this ease of use comes at a cost of more limited functionality. So historically, some of the cloud applications out there have been more limited in capability and scope of the business challenges they could solve. But I think today, this has changed, and they're both, from a cloud and on-premise perspective, both have equally rich functionality, and are both equally easy to implement potentially at this point. And so I don't think there's too much of a difference there. From an ERP, GL, or data source perspective, and this is really where an organization's data is located. Having access to, or easy access to, the data that an organization requires, the data that the organization wants to put into performance management solution is really critical to realizing that investment. And so, this is one of the key considerations. Again, where is that data located and how easy is it to get to that data? Another criteria is really around broad or localized access, broad versus localized access. And this really has to do with, the geography of the user base. So where are the users located? Does an organization have many offices, or does it have, a central or a head office where most of the users are located? I think the other way to look at this is really with regards to the breadth of the user base. Is it a wide spectrum of roles or, different people across the organization that are looking to access the performance management solution? Or is it really more focused or specific or defined by a core set of users or concentrated in that regard? From this perspective, cloud solutions are generally viewed as being more accessible because they are more web-based typically, and therefore accessible to a broader spectrum of users just because of the ease of access. Pretty much anywhere you can get an internet connection. But again, it almost depends on your organization and your ability to provide that remote access to the users as they require it. We talked a little bit about the recurring or upfront costs. Historically, cloud deployments have been characterized by subscription licensing or more of an operating expense model, while on-premise were typically more perpetual license-based, so pay upfront for a license in perpetuity. I think today that's changing, and it has been for a number of years, where subscription licensing is actually available for on-premise solutions as well. So the decision of upfront versus recurring is not as much of an issue. We heard Craig talk about, a lot of the cloud vendors will incentivize sort of the upfront payment of the license, even though it is a recurring subscription type cost. But again, there are other options out there with respect to, annual pay options as well. Another criteria is really the ability to manage and support. So we talked a bunch about this. And this consideration actually really ties back to the IT strategy point. Whether an organization has the ability to manage and support the CPM solution, or really drives the decision between cloud and on-premise. And lastly, around security. I think cloud security at this point has really been standardized and matured to the point where the cloud vendors really have quite comprehensive and robust security, more so than a typical organization could potentially achieve on their own. And really leveraging those best practices in this regard, in this manner, may be preferable potentially for smaller organizations as well. Okay, just really quickly, just to recap, organizations in our experience that typically choose cloud for their performance management solution, are either cloud already or really pursuing that cloud strategy. They've got data sources in the cloud or use exclusively data sources in the cloud that they'd like to bring in. They've got users who are more distributed, whether across the country or around the globe, or who work frequently outside of the office or need easy accessibility to the solution. They prefer not making the larger upfront investments, or prefer that lower cost to entry or recurring OpEx to pay for the solution, and have limited IT resources and the ability to support, and also the ability, limited in their ability potentially to provide secure access to the data. In terms of on-prem, those organizations that are typically leaning on-prem, have an on-premise strategy, whether it be from an industry, for industry reasons, or whether it be because of the large number of data sources they already have that are on-premise. And really, in order to make it easy to bring that data into the performance management solution, going on-prem is the way to go for them. One of our customers that I can think of in particular has their CPM solution connected to over 15 data sources, most of them legacy on-premise sources that would be challenging to move to the cloud, and so they opted for an on-prem type solution. When we talk about users, with a more concentrated user base, a lot of organizations tend to lean towards CPM because they have access can provide access on the corporate network and don't need that broad accessibility necessarily. If an organization has existing IT infrastructure and support resources, again, that can absorb the incremental work of supporting a CPM solution, it becomes an easy decision potentially to go on-prem. And as well, if you've got a more mature IT organization, a mature organization, you probably have some pretty robust security in place already that to secure that data. In summary, it's really all about choice. There are many different reasons that factor into the decision between a cloud or on-premise deployment for CPM. In terms of the decision-making process, we strongly encourage potential customers, prospects that are looking for a solution to really focus, as I mentioned, on the functionality first, and then look at the other organizational considerations that I spoke about. Great, thank you. And I think back to you, Jess.
Yes, excellent. Thanks so much, Ronald. We want to thank you, Craig, and Joey for an engaging and informative discussion. We're now going to review some of the questions that were submitted by the audience. As a reminder, you can still submit questions to the group via the Q&A section of the interface. In the interest of time, we may only get to one of these, but we will share all questions with the group afterwards so they can respond to you post-event as well. Joey, this question came in for you, and it asks, how do you create buy-in when you need to change processes, procedures, and technology that will support planning and budgeting and involve colleagues across departments? So maybe you could chat about that briefly.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Really, what works best for us and what we usually do is we focus on alignment. We get all the stakeholders in one room, and we explain the current environment and the business justification for us needing this. Getting everybody on the same page, I think, helps with rolling something out rather than just kind of forcing it down somebody's throat and having to deal with it. And, I think also when you bring everybody into the same room and you have all the stakeholders together, it's letting everybody have this kind of a say in the project and giving their feedback. If you can address their concerns early in the process, I think it definitely helps with getting them to understand why we need and to make the process a lot smoother of kind of changing processes.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Joey. And just because we're almost at the top of the hour, we can go ahead and share all of those questions that came in post-event so the group can respond individually. So thanks again for all the great questions we received. We want to say thanks again to Craig, Joey, and Ronell for a wonderful session. As a reminder, their slides from today can be found under the handout section of the interface. We welcome you to join us at performative.com to continue the conversation with your peers in the community. And if you'd like an introduction to any of today's speakers or to Prophix, please tell us in the survey. Once again, we'd like to thank our partner Prophix for making today's webinar possible. And finally, we'll now transition to our third and final polling question. The third question is, what is your major concern by going cloud? The options are control over solution, integration to other systems, data privacy and security, or performance of solution or service. As a reminder, you must answer all three polling questions to receive credit for today's webinar. And as we are taking a moment to allow the remainder of the attendees to respond, just a reminder that we value any and all feedback, so please remember to fill out the brief survey you'll see on your screen once we close the meeting out. Please go ahead and make your final selection so I can go ahead and share the results here. And as we can see, the most popular answer with almost 50% was data privacy and security. Again, we want to thank all of you, our attendees, for joining us for today's webinar, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.